It's a word environment. It's a word environmental day. We are there because of the environment. We have been brought into this world maybe 50, 60, 60, 75 years ago. And now the way we are going through the situation is not an easy thing even to discuss about that. In this pandemic, Department of MBA has come forward to arrange a webinar from a luminary. The topic itself is wonderful. Increase your employability. You see, everybody gets education. What is there to get employed? There are so many things that can happen. If you are knowledgeable, if your skills is good, if your attitude is good, certainly you are employable. Suppose if 10 members are there, go for a placement or a recruitment. On the other hand, you have HR who is trying to get the information out of you. How do you identify that you are better than them? See, normally we use 30% of the lungs capacity. In the pandemic, by having the pranayama or yogasana, you increase the capacity to almost 100%. Likewise, you can leverage the employability by attending to these seminars, webinars from an extraordinary person. Anand is a resourceful person. I have spoken to him about 3 years back. I'm really amazed by his versatility. He has come forward to act as a mentor to increase the employability issue. See, what it does is it builds the capacity. Once your capacity is something imaginably 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, nobody can even challenge you. So what is the GB capacity of our cell phones? When we buy a cell phone, when we go for a data, we will say, so if at all we have got a capacity of 64 GB, it is very good. What is the capacity of our human brain? If you remember a person, how many images you can make? Suppose if you think of remembering the image of RNSIT, how many images memory can capture? So it is enormous capacity human being has got. Human beings have got a memory capacity of far in excess of 100 crore GB. 100 crore GB is a smaller number. So in the days of pandemic, we have surrendered it to a device which has a capacity of only 64 GB and 100 GB. Let me heartily congratulate the department head, Professor Bojanna, for this initiative. Let me acknowledge him because he has tried to reach almost 4,000 delegates to be a part of this event. I'm extremely happy that on listening to this webinar today, you'll be a totally different person. Whenever two things are done with difference, I'm sure it stands out. Let me wish every individual the very best. I would like to thank and congratulate the speaker Anand, who has taken time off on the busy schedule to help us out, help us our students. I would request the delegates, our students from other institutions to reap the highest benefit out of this. Let me thank Professor Bojan and his team for making this arrangement even on a pandemic day. Let me wish you the very best. I am sure the person who has taken an entry now, the person who exit from this webinar will be totally different. God bless you. Take the best reminiscence of this workshop or webinar. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of our RNSIT-MBA Department, I heartily welcome our respected principal, Dr. M.K. Venkatesha, who is present here even in his busy schedule. To make this event a blessed one, invoke Goddess Saraswati by lighting the lamp of knowledge and wisdom.
कल्याणं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Dr. R.N. Shetty, powered by passion and guided by thinking. It carries the promise of making a dream into reality. He is a man with great vision. His legendary life will always be inspirational and alive in many hearts. Let us now pay heartily tribute to our chairman, Dr. R.N. Shetty. I now request our beloved head of the department, MBA, Dr. Yubojanna, to introduce luminous speaker to our audience.
Thank you, Shubhavi. Respected Principal, Dr. M.K. Venkatesha, today's speaker, Mr. Anantha L., and all my dear faculty members, the Program Director, Mr. Rakesh, and student coordinators, Mr. Pranava and Mr. Bhaskar, all my dear faculty members, and my dearest students and participants across the country. A very good morning to you all. By paying pranams to our chairman, Dr. R.N. Shetty, let me introduce today's speaker, Mr. Anantha. Anantha Lakshmanarao is currently working as an associate director with KPMG. He has close to 19 years of professional experience. He is extensively involved in training activities. His areas include leadership and public speaking. Mr. Anantha L. handled project assignments in United States of America at Houston, New York, Dallas, and various other places. He has done Executive General Management Program from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He also has finished agent examination conducted by United States Internal Revenue Services. Sir, on behalf of RNSIT and RNSIT-MBA, a hearty welcome to you, sir. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bojana sir, and thank you, first of all, to RNSIT for this wonderful opportunity, and Professor Venkatesha sir for your inaugural address and having everything in place, the administrative team. Okay, so well, a very good morning, one and all. It's quite heartening to see so many people joining this webinar. I have been watching the numbers. This reminds me of recent Sensex growth, how this has been happening over the past few days, just on a lighter note, right? So why did I get this idea of doing a session on increasing the employability? And let me tell you, I think over the past few years, I have had a great opportunity to interact with professionals in various parts of India, as well as various parts of the world, and how the corporate world has been undergoing a transformational journey. And there has been some learning with blessings and the support of all the seniors and whoever I have been able to interact with. And the intent of this session is basically to share my experience and put through the lens of how you can bit of use this for the benefit of you, and probably you can help others as well. That's the intent. And let me tell you, this is the I wouldn't promise to be a life-changing session. Having said that, only we can change our lives, and the day is made if you find some good inputs and if that you find that helpful. That's the thing. Now it's good to listen to Goddess Saraswati's chanting praise. So at that point of time, something reminded myself So that was, let me start with this Sanskrit Subhashita. It goes like this. Okay. So Swagruhe pujate murkaha, Swagrame pujate prabhu, Swarajye pujate raja, Vidwan sarvatra pujate. So what this means is an individual, even though he is not so well read or not a having a good intellectual ability, still he will be honored at his home. Similarly, a king will be honored in his kingdom. But we all know the one with the knowledge will be honored everywhere. And that is, knowledge is something which is invisible, but that will make all of us invincible, right? It's invisible, but it will make all of us invincible. So knowledge is power. And this adage is evergreen. And we are all thriving in a knowledge economy. And far more important, so I'm glad that India, as a country, are also able to reap the demographic dividend out of this knowledge economy. So two quick things before I start. During the inauguration, I think it was Shubhavi. Thank you for the inauguration. And there was a mentioning that enthralling the employers. So definitely, I think that is good to bring the employers delight. But before that, I think we all need to be delighted, enthralled with ourselves, who we are, what we do, and what is our goal, what is our aim. That should be enthralling. So with that note, so let me share some thoughts on what this employability is. So the first question that probably comes to our mind is, when we talk about increasing the employability, is it something only for the folks or the individuals who are looking for the job that it matters? Or does it matter for anyone and everyone, right? So now the world is fast changing ever than before. And knowledge is, at a fast pace. We are really finding it challenging, not a problematic, but challenging to cope up with this knowledge at the speed at which the inventions are happening and the resources that we have at the tip of our finger. So now, having said that, I'll give you some practical perspective, right? So probably you would have seen in the news, whenever there is a downward trend in the economy or what have you, you see quite a news in the news that newspapers or media, right? So there is an XYZ company and they have laid off, say, 20,000 people. Now, on the other corner of the newspaper, you also read some other ABC company have hired some other 30,000 people. So now we get to see this news, but is it apt for us to just get perturbed by what's happening around us, or can we have a better control over what we can control? Absolutely everything we can't control, but whatever is within our sphere of control, can we control? Now, this employability, enhancing or increasing the employability falls very well within our sphere of control, right? So now going back to what I mentioned few seconds ago, that a company XYZ is laying off certain people, and not on a negative connotation that I wanted to bring it up. I just wanted to give you some context. That's the only reason, right? So now the company is not shut down. The company is still running. It is just that because of the rejig or the revamping of the operations or what have you, whatever the management jargons, the technical terms that has been attached to it, right? So there are a certain group of people that are not able to make it further, right? Now, the point is there are still many employees that are well within the company and the company is running. And at a certain point of time, again, the company will prosper or the organization will prosper. Now, what is the decision-making factor for someone to make a decision that, who can suit the future of the company or the organization, right? So now when we talk about the skills, what that means is it is not only just important to be well skilled, well adapted for today's scenarios, but the future, that is also very important. So having said that, So the employability aspect is not just for the freshers or job seekers who are looking to, getting into corporates or any organization. It is for everyone and anyone, right? So cutting edge, keeping ourselves on a cutting edge is quite important, right? So with this, we'll go through some of the pointers. And having said that, I know it's a beautiful Saturday morning. Hope you all are enjoying the weather. You can just be relaxed. You don't have to, be serious. Just probably, I think we can take some of the things seriously, but just listen, and I'm going to share my experiences. Can you please move to the next slide? Yeah, so while, thank you. So while the next slide comes up, yeah, it's right here. Thank you. So what we will talk about is there is certain things called building blocks in our journey towards excellence and becoming more and more employable. And then the career opportunities, how to face GD, how to face interview, learning and resource. And this is quite important. Amongst this, if you ask me, what is more important is equal to opportunity or more than that, I would place learning as a most critical ability or the value or the trait that we all need to carry, right? And then we'll also have a Q&A session. Yeah, so we can move to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. So this is a excerpt from the newspaper I got to see a few days ago, right? So it read as 66% of the fresh graduates yet to land a job survey. Just give it few seconds and think about what do you think when you see this, right? When you see news like this in a newspaper, and this is from one of the English dailies, right? And this makes to the career pages of the newspaper, right? So it says 66% of the fresh graduates yet to land a job survey, right? So now we can interpret, we can perceive this in ways that is detrimental, or thinking that the situation is not so conducive, or also think that there are 34% of the people who have gotten through the rough seas, sailed through the rough seas, even at this juncture, and have made a great beginning. I wouldn't say, a great accomplishment. It's a great beginning, right? Now, definitely, we all can be part of that 34. And let me tell you, if we look at the employability index that India has, and thanks to all the new ways of teaching and the academia realizing the need to better integrate with the industry and how the curriculum can be made better. And I see very competitive curriculums. So 10 years ago, India's employability index was at 24. Now it has come down to 15. 15 were the first 15 countries. India is also one of the countries which have a high employability index. And then also the employability is close to 50%. This is as per the research survey, right? So not too bad. It's a promising number. Vis-a-vis what we get to hear, the situation is a bit grim or what have you. I don't think we need to be swayed or overwhelmed by such news. But the reason that I'm sharing is I wanted to give you a quick context of how the things are, coming in an advantageous way to have this information for you, right? So let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. Now, here is the question. I will give you 10 seconds. You don't have to probably answer. You can think for yourself, right? Or if you want to use the chat box, use it. That's fine. Just my question is, what is your level of confidence in terms of getting a placement after your formal education? Okay, so minus the current so-called adverse scenario or what have you. Okay, think everything is normal. And what do you think your level of confidence in terms of getting a placement after your formal education? Okay, so just keep the percentage within you. Either you can use the chat box or you can give it a thought. Excellent. I see 75%. 100% excellent. Quite delightful. 70%. Great. Thank you. 200%, 95%, 90%. Great. 55%, 70%. Okay. Thank you all for being participative. Given we are in the virtual environment, I know it's good to see participation in a way through chat box. Yeah, the responses are coming. I really appreciate you responding. Now, if you ask me what is the ideal percentage, or what is the right percentage, or what is the incorrect percentage, I don't call anything as wrong, right percentage or incorrect percentage. So there is nothing like it. There is no right percentage, there is no incorrect percentage. Okay, the question was more from the self-assessment perspective, right? So this is a good start for us. Where do I need to get started? If I indicate myself as a 75%, I know what are the efforts that I will need to put in to cover the rest of the percentage, which makes me more employable, more presentable, right? So if I assign a percentage of 50 to myself, so then I have larger area to cover. That's absolutely fine. It goes on one individual self-assessment. That's more important. Yeah. So this is something for all of us to ponder individually, right? So keep that with you, and that could be a starting point. Now let's move on to the next slide, please. Yep. Okay, so previously I mentioned about something called building blocks, and you see a pyramid right here, right? So as I said, all these are nothing new, but I'm just trying to put it in a context that we are trying to work on, right? How to be more employable. Now, if you see in the pyramid right at the bottom, knowledge, then skills, then comes the attitude. So now when I talk about the knowledge aspect, which covers greater part of this building block, right? That is the foundational aspect. So let's go to the next slide, please. And we'll spend some time on what this knowledge is, right? So two things here. One is subject knowledge, and the other is current affairs. We'll discuss a bit in detail, because I do think there are some perceptions and may also be some misconceptions on what I have gotten to hear. Not in all the cases, but I just wanted to clear the air out in any case, right? So now, my next question to you, right? Please feel free to use the chat box and comment that what is your thought on whatever you study in your educational arena as a part of your curriculum is going to help you as a part of your professional career. Let me repeat the question. What is your thought on what do you think whatever you're going to study as a part of your curriculum is going to help you as a part of the professional career? Answer can be yes, no, maybe, don't know, anything is fine, right? Please use the chat box. Yeah, percentage is also fine, right? No, yeah, no, maybe, yes, no. I like this blend of answers. I think that's what makes us each of us a distinct individuals, right? Yeah, great. So there are some percentage, may not be yes, place part, maybe, place part. I liked it. Yeah, great. Well, thank you for being participative and being responsive. Much appreciated. So now let me also give you some examples of the journey I have started so far, right? So while there is a thought that we learn through experience, so definitely I think experience will definitely help us hone the skills, and without experience, we remain where we are. But at the same time, I also would like to share a thought with you for any specialized knowledge per se, for that matter, right? Definitely required a specialized effort towards enhancing that knowledge. That's very important. The fundamentals have to be strong, right? You might have heard, somebody would have learned, if I were to put it in a context, accounting tally through experience. I do completely agree with that. But I have not heard any structural engineer, building a skyscraper out of just experience, not putting a pen and the paper and coming out with a blueprint or a drawing. I haven't heard any neurosurgeon performing a successful surgery without having the fundamentals knowledge of medicine and the specialization that the individual has gone through. Now, you can think of any scenarios like that, right? So what this means is anything specialized that we do definitely would demand a specialized knowledge. And what different thing that you and me are in the arena that you and me are in, right? We will be in the management area, right? We'll be in the knowledge economy, and specialized knowledge is much required, right? So fundamentals now, while people can do through experience, there is no discounting of the experience, but definitely I think a focused approach and a very strong fundamental knowledge is very, very important. The reason I say so, even from the practical perspective out of the experience that I have seen is people would need support. I wouldn't really call it as a struggle, when people come to the industry, right? So we all go through the journey, right? People would need additional support. And there were times wherein we have done a refresher of fundamentals of accounting as an example. Again, with no offense, or that is not something that which we should not do. It is not the comment like that, but I'm just putting the point out there, right? So even now I work in an international tax arena, just to share some perspective, right? Now I handle taxes of various countries across the globe, maybe in European country or the US, UK, or what have you. Now, if you ask me, did I study those taxes during my curriculum? Really not. But I did have a passion about Indian tax, and I did make a decision, informed decision, that I need to get into the tax area, and that is how I got into. Now, the fundamental knowledge or the approach to study of the tax that I did gain, whether it is solving the examples or the problems, as we call during our curriculum, or understanding the tax provision, and most importantly, interpreting the tax provisions, that remains across same. So then now, once you have your fundamentals strong, it does not matter what you were given. And that is the beauty of the thing. We never get to work on the same thing over a long period of time. That makes that puts us in a stale situation, right? So having said that, subject knowledge is very, very important. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I will tell you. So before joining my current firm, KPMG, I did start my career with major automaker Toyota. This was many, many years ago, almost close to 2 decades ago. And then I go for the interview, and right at in the interview application form, there is a place which indicates that your grades from the scores from grade 10 through final year of graduation. That time it was 3 years of graduation. There was no semester system. Now, I got to understand that someone who have had first class throughout would definitely have a cutting edge or a preference over the others. See, there are various ways of filtering, but now I'm not debating the point whether the marks is the one and the only thing that would equip us. We'll get into it in a minute. But now, standing in front of a company, I couldn't think back that if I had not had that marks, that would the marks would have mattered to me or not. That was a decisive moment. Now, this can also be the other view to this is definitely your marks grades is a passport or a visa, but without which you cannot even initiate the travel. Whether you want to travel or not, it's up to you, but you cannot even initiate the travel without passport or visa. So that way, I strongly believe that subject knowledge is very, very important. All the professionals for that matter, be it a chartered accountant or a company secretary or what have you, they will need to be ahead of whatever is happening in the industry or the area of their specialization. And guess what? If that is not the case tomorrow, how about the client coming and telling us there are certain updates in the tax law or certain policies of the government, and what is your view on it? And then I make a sad face that I will need to read and get the update and come back to you. So that talks a lot about the reduction in the reliability that anybody would have on me, right? So it's very important fundamentally. Now, the next and the most important part, equally important part is, current affairs. Now, when we talk about current affairs, there are many facets to why do I say the current affairs is most important, and we all know this. But at certain junctures, probably because of the work pressure that so many people use the jargon, work pressure, right? People tend to lose the sight of current affairs or what have you. I think thereby we are losing our control. When I say losing the control, the hold about the subject matter expertise, it's very, very important. So now when the budget is out, are you able to read the analysis in detail and come out with what you think as your analysis, your personal analysis? One is reading through the stuff, the material, and can you add a flavor to it, putting through your line of thought and coming out with your analysis. Now, it is also very important. We are in a world when we talk about networking and so on and so forth. Say, for example, you are in a management area, and if you want to connect with a doctor or if you want to connect with a lawyer, you will need to speak their language. And what is the best way to connect? Current affairs is one of the things wherein that will help you, build connect. That's other piece of it. Now, we also know group discussions form integral part of the entire hiring process in any organizations for that matter. Now, when we have a constant endeavor to update ourselves with the current affairs, right? Then you don't have to do an 11th hour preparation for the group discussion, because when we know what to talk, then we can work on the skills on how to talk, how to deliver that. But again, the fundamental principle, like how I said, the knowledge, right? Because people can make out, how strong knowledge wise an individual is as we spend few minutes with anybody based on what we talk. And there are plethora of things, and Professor Venkatesha sir made a right point, right? Very apt example. I felt quite it resonated with all of us, right? So there is a lot more for us to grasp, right? So it is all on what we focus, right? So one is your area of interest, but at the same time, you cannot, or we cannot also restrict ourselves to only our area of interest. What's the trend in the business, in the industry, right? And I know the most talked about, the controversial topics, I think there are bigger and better things for all of us to think about and worry about, right? So I will keep it there on the most controversial or the generic topics that are spoken. And what is my USP in a way that if I am able to talk something of a specialized knowledge or something different, I think that is one of my USP, unique selling point, right? Thereby I am demonstrating, knowledgeable. So in a nutshell, both subject knowledge and current affairs. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on how you can enhance your current affairs, right? So there are things beyond we getting Google graduates or WhatsApp University students. So there are a lot more, there are magazines like Competition Success Review, Competition Refresher, and you did not just think about it when you want to approach competitive exams. You get inspired really by people who have cracked those challenging examinations. And newspapers, what is a better way than newspapers? And if you are very tech savvy, definitely please subscribe to the e-paper. The free news is not an extensive coverage. And definitely, as you read newspaper, vocabulary also will improve, and all, you can see that domino effect as they call, or the butterfly impact, right? Once you get onto the correct path or the correct track of what you want to accomplish, completely align yourself, rather than I would say correct path or track. Once you completely align yourself, then you can see, far more benefits or impact in yourself, right? So that's about knowledge. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so next slide, please. Yep. Okay, so we covered knowledge, excuse me, in a nutshell. So now let's also talk about skills a bit, right? And 4 important things: communication skills, soft skills, personality, and leadership, which I think amongst an array of skills that we need to build, hone, enhance, I think would be of topmost priority. A good start, I would say. So now, when I talk about communication skills, and previously we did a quick check on what is our percentage of employability. Similarly, we can do that check for anything and everything. What percentage do I feel confident in terms of communicating with others? Now, also the point is, when I say communication, is it talking in English eloquently, or using good language, having that fluency, having a great vocabulary, or putting on the accent, right? That is what I will need to decide on the level of what level of expertise that I want to, the journey that I want to embark upon. Now, most of the people that I speak to have a view which I really appreciate and respect, that communication is about speaking very well in an understandable manner. I do completely agree that, but at the same time, I think we should not disregard the fact that that God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means listening is the fundamental or the core of the communication to start with. And we all know, but just a reminder in the perspective, right? Only when we can listen, then we'll be able to respond. Otherwise, we will be reacting. Reacting is with an intent of already making the decision that I need to respond in a certain way, preconceived notion. Whereas respond is you listen to it when someone has said, and then put in your thoughts and then process it. Now, why do I say this? Listening is a very important skill. So I have been on calls with professionals across the globe. And one thing that I would see is, regardless of the expertise of the communication an individual has gotten, very good English, but people quite often still ask, can you please repeat it? And again, with no offense, and asking that is not a bad thing. But when it happens quite often, that is an indication for me that I need to work upon that, right? Which means there is something called active listening, right? Just listening or active listening. So active listening is listening with intent, right? So I keep giving this example, but I thought still maybe apt. This was few years ago. I was on one of the interview panels, one of the entry level personnel, and he shared his resume with the panel. And being one of the panel members, I was quickly going through the resume, and all that he had done is he had put his grades of the graduation in the reverse order. As an example, third year was something like 67%, and second year was 54%, and first year was 51%, or something like that. I don't exactly remember the percentage, but that was the case. There is a good improvement. Now, when I did go through that CV, bad on me, I did not notice this was put in the reverse order. All that I was thinking was why the marks has taken a toll or a downward trend. And my question was, why is there a, and I was about to ask reduction, and before that he jumped in, barged in and said, because of the hard work, sir. And now I was a bit confused that why because of the hard work. In my mind, I'm thinking that the marks has reduced, and in his mind, in his head, he's thinking it has increased. So now a simple example, right? While we are in a hurry to react rather than respond, how it can create or land us in a situation of contradictions, right? So please practice active listening. It's very important, and that is the beginning for even if you want to learn communication or communication experts or what have you, right? So then comes oral communication, written communication, and so on and so forth, right? And another thing that I have observed is when people have been using a certain language continuously, the flow is already there. And when I see people switching between the languages, so many of the professionals, what they do, again, whenever I make this point with a no offense or a criticism, the only reason that I'm making these points is how the minor things that we can focus on can help us change to get better. That's the only thing, right? So now people quite frequently talking in regional language, and they get onto a call with a customer, be it within India or within overseas. It's little challenging when they have to switch over, and we can see a bit of hiccups. So then what we did is we had this challenge in our organization as well, and this has little more far reaching, not so good impacts, because that also leads to certain people believing that people from certain places are good, certain places are not good, or what have you. I'm not going to get to those aspects, but what we aimed is how can we keep this uniform towards a win-win. So what we did is we tried a way wherein we made it a rule, not as in something which will be punishable, that we'll make sure we all speak at least on the floor, office floor, in a business language, which is English. We will not use regional languages. Now, initially there was a bit of reluctance, criticism as to how can we be enforced. I think with any change, that is the immediate human response. We do completely understand that. But over a period of time, gradually what happened is people could see the benefit whenever they go on the calls or whenever they have to give the presentation. They did start coming out with flying colors. And then people started buying in. And guess what? When something works in the grapevine, that is the best way that the leadership can infuse something. And many people tried doing that and worked out, and that helped. Now if you ask me whether all the 100% of the people are doing it, we don't do the policing, but the point that I'm trying to drive is it's only through practice that we can start our journey towards excellence, if not perfection, right? So now I was attending one more session in another our IAMB Alumni Association, and one of the experts from Karnataka Knowledge Commission, he had a point that stuck to my mind, that if we want to be expert in any field, right, be it sports or be it academics, or if you want to be an extremely exceptional person, be you or you're a public speaker or what have you, at least the time that is required is 10,000 hours of effort. And just imagine, even if we focus with the 1/5 of that, 2,000 hours of effort, so definitely we can see drastic improvements. Not only we, the people around us can see the drastic improvements. So that's the verbal communication. Written communication, so definitely I think adding more vocabulary would help us. And as I mentioned previously, reading newspapers and start reading the books, or if you're already reading, it's well and good, would go a long way, right? So now the next part is soft skills. It is not that the soft skills were not there in our culture, but it has taken a little different form and shape in the modern environment, right? So people can definitely not see that, but can feel it, right? So the way an individual carries in a group setting or an individual setting, and the basic courtesies, manners, mannerisms, and so on and so forth, right? Because people make certain impressions based on the perceptions, and definitely it would be different once we start interacting, once we start demonstrating, right? So as they say, first impression is the best impression, and throughout it's very good that we build and develop soft skills. And I'm not expert in any of these fields. I'm speaking out of the experience. And so definitely when we interact with people from different cultures, right? So when first is being sensitive to these soft skills, and then developing and learning this will help a long way. So, right. So there are many, there is a plethora of things within soft skills, and there are specialized training. And again, without practice, it will not be of much help. So now the other point, right? So networking, whether we classify it as a soft skill or not, but in my context, I thought I will place it, here. So this is one of the strong skills that we will need to, develop. And we are all good, having the connects over the Facebook and what have you on the social media. But now the next question is, how do I materialize this? So when I say how do I materialize this, not just taking advantage for the self, it's always partnering with others towards growth, right? How can others get benefited from me, and how can I gain from others' knowledge, experience, right? So building the personal connect, and how I can give you an analogy is everybody has their own recipe, how do you build this networking and personal connect? Given the same ingredients, the dish prepared by different people will not be of the same taste, but it would still be tasty. I think I would give that analogy of how you would want to build your networking skills, right? But definitely much needed is we will need to invest time with an intent. Let me repeat, we will need to invest time with an intent. So what I mean by that is, it is not just spending the time. Investing time with an intent is you already have something to accomplish, right? You want to connect with the people and exchange the knowledge. That's the intent. Otherwise it just becomes like that, with not much fruitful results, right? So that's about soft skills in a nutshell. And the next thing is personality. So we all are quite familiar, quite aware of the famous brands across the globe, right? So be it the fabrics, or the apparels, or the sportswear, Adidas, Nike, or Apple, Samsung, or Toyota, Microsoft, what have you, right? So now those are all the brands, and our personality is nothing but our brand. And let me give you a bit of jovial example. I used to be late for all the meetings generally, right? So my initial Anantha L is my name, and people used to call me late Anantha, and I was late when I was alive. I used to just make a fun of myself. So that is what I was known for a few years ago. Now, you can definitely have certain perceptions, impressions on certain people, right? So this person is humble, this person is honest, this person is punctual, uh, what have you, right? So this is part of your personality. Now, when I talk about personality, it is not only how others see you, it's also very important that how do you see yourself, so that you are able to nourish yourself at 3 different layers, right? So physically, mentally, emotionally. And I know if you have your friends and acquaintances working in a corporate world specifically, and I don't know why people only in the corporate world think that it is stressful and not all others are just not having that stress. Everybody has stress, right? But it's just about, and also it's not a good thing to manage the stress. How do we keep it to at bay? There are ways, right? So the daily routine, the daily rigors that you commit to, right, that you resort to, definitely will build your personality very strongly. When we talk about resilience for the current situation, right, it's very important. Now, all this sum total of factors of how you are perceived by others and what you think of yourself comes out as your personality. Now, why is this relevant now? Now we all work in a teams, and it is very important that we have the compatible personality. So when I say compatible in personality, definitely people all differ in their thoughts, approaches, but is my personality to respect those differences? Is my personality to accept and move on with those differences and still be part of the team, right? Am I accommodative? My apologies. Or am I aggressive? That is my personality. And pleasing personality everybody would like, with all the basic manners, and this is something that quite we all see talked about, right? So how do you bring or strengthen the positive personality out of you, right? Again, there are a lot of personality courses, but I think reading goes a long way in strengthening our personality, and this is journey like anything for that matter, right? And the next important piece is leadership. I think I don't even have to mention that gone are the days when people with no hair or gray hair used to be at the helm of the affairs in the organization, and all others were expected to follow what they mention as a command, that is dictum that is provided by the top management. Gone are those days. The corporate world specifically is fast changing, and people are realizing that the fresh talents that are coming along bring fresh ideas, right? So otherwise, why on earth would we see a lot of startups from the fresh graduates out of college? Definitely, I think organizations would need to infuse this freshness at regular points of time. And what is a better way than getting it from the fresh people coming out of the college? So now, why do I connect this to leadership? What that means for all of us is there is ample opportunity to express ourselves as a leader right from the time we join the organization, right? So in our organization, there is something called everyone is leader, wherein everyone's opinion will be respected and heard. And how do we work on that going forward, right? So we all come with strengths and areas of opportunity. Just because a certain person has experience, it doesn't mean that good in all, and the other person, just because he's an entrant to the organization, doesn't mean that it does not. So it's a mutual learning. So now the point is, how do you make the impact? And if you are really seeing career growth over a period of time, right? So having this, one of our professors at IMB used to tell, Professor Prasad, there are three approaches that we can follow, be it career or anything for that matter. So one is gardener, the other is farmer, the other is forester. Gardener is a short-term view, wherein you see for the next few years. Farmer is 5 to 7 years. Forester is beyond 10 years or 20 years. How do you want to envision your career or your personal growth, right? So if you want to embark on your leadership journey, you start at any time, right now, right today, right? Not waiting to get the positions or the titles. And you might all have read The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin Sharma. If not, I would strongly urge you to pick up that book, and simple language, but quite inspiring, right? Now, how do I enhance the leadership? And there is also another piece to it. I will talk about it in a little while, right? So how do I enhance leadership? So the intent is now the inspired leadership or the servant leadership, the most talked about or the most admired leadership, right? So doing rather than telling is a most inspiring way, which means leading from the front, and then supporting the team. So take advantage of any of the events, or there are a lot of, the society needs a lot of support at any point of time. So in what way you can support, and it need not necessarily be the monetary benefit that most think. If you have some availability, if you have some time, why don't go to the schools of people who are situationally underprivileged. I don't call them as underprivileged, situationally, right? Because they are in that place. That is why they are probably having limited opportunities. Can you invest some time with them and help them out? I think that's the leadership. People definitely see through the intent. It's quite easy, right? So having honest and the right intent definitely help us build a strong leadership. And then comes, as you grow in your organizational career, you take the specialized leadership training, be it from Vital Smarts, or the 7 habits or 8 habits of highly effective people, or whatever, right? But I think the journey starts small, starts with you, with simple steps, right? So these are the skills that are quite important amongst others, I would say, not all in all. Now let's move on to the next slide, please. Excuse me. Okay, so I know we have people who have just joined their curriculum, and people who might have finished, what have you. But the most important thing that I would say, or what I have seen in my circles, people who relatively had a plan of what they want to accomplish as a part of the career have little more structured and approach towards success, rather than going in a haywire way or haphazard way. The reason I will tell you why this is. So when we are in the interview panel, many people want to move to a different field, different area. That's absolutely fine. That shows an individual's intent to learn different things. But at what point do you want to do that, right? That's very important. Once you have a certain level of expertise in a certain field, then you move on to this. Now, why did I say this, right? I think it's very important that we marry our passion with what we do. So having said that, it does not mean that don't get into any work or any job until you get your dream job, right? It's not an apt thing to do. But I think what sounds reasonable, if I'm not at all a person that would by any chance think that crunching numbers, finance is not my cup of tea, definitely I can, make efforts towards that and come to a reasonable level. But vis-a-vis, if I'm very good at interpersonal skills and I always like to go out, meet people, greet people, interact with people, build those connects, make an impact, what have you, right? So then probably I should look at something in that regard, regardless of how the opportunities will span out. Now, the reason I say that is anything for that matter. I think when we have a passion towards it, then nobody needs to drive, or we don't even think about driving the self. It's in an autopilot mode, so that you can invest your time on many of the other things. Now, we get to hear many opportunities. What I would suggest is narrow down to, if not one option, at least 2-3 options of what are the things that you want to do, so that you can make a concentrated effort. At a certain point of time, we don't want to realize that I am on a little different track than where I wanted it to be. That does not, because most importantly, time, right? We can get anything back, but time is not the thing, right? So now, very few options, right here, indicated. Let me take, while we all know how to explore, and there are very good resources, and we get to talk to professionals from different organizations, companies, and what have you, right? Startup entrepreneurs. In IIMB, there is a cell for that to encourage, and the government of India also has many encouraging schemes for that. Now, what I think we should think, is taking it to the next level and moving away a bit from generic, which means I can give you an example, right? So banking, definitely these from the times when our parents used to look out for a job, banking seemed to be a lucrative career, right? Held at high esteem in the eyes of the public, in the society. Now, are you passionate about banking? Now, also think about what is driving that passion in banking for you, right? That's very important. Now, here lies the very important decision-making factor. Now, if you see banking industry, what has happened, right? So there was a banking service recruitment board, which used to test the analytical skills, critical thinking to some extent, but more of quantitative aptitude and the accuracy of the calculations to the most part. Definitely, there were many other skills, but the focus was on that, right? So now it is no more there. But now if you look at the modern banking industry, so these are all back office, my apologies, back office, right? So this is done to the most part by machines. Now, if you look at the banks like Citibank, now they are withdrawing from India, only the retail banking part. Now, being a customer of Citibank, I did have delightful experience. And now, even if they are moving out of the banking industry, there is no doubt that I will continue with their credit card services. The reason is the model that they brought, right? So one thing. Now, with a different model, the expectation is also different. The expectation of the Citibank is not only the numerical capability or the numerical ability of the staff, right? Which at a fundamental level is yes, but customer centricity. Customer centricity is the focus. What brings customer delight? And I will give you one example, right? Barclays, which is one of the famous banking organizations. Again, politics apart. Now, so what they did is in their login, I have heard from one of the most experienced executives from Barclays, right? So they did enable some option in their online banking, which said out of country marker. Okay, out of country marker. So what this does is think about a situation wherein all the top executives who are the customers of the bank, they are on a vacation, and the least thing that anybody would want is getting a call from a bank inquiring something, right? I'm sure they would not ask for the credit card, and they but what have you, right? They might just have a check-in call to check how the customer is doing, is everything okay. Now, if the customer enables the out of country marker, right? So what it indicates is nobody is supposed to call the customer from the bank. Now, this is similar to the do not disturb service that we have in premium hotels. Now, this is one example of how organizations are wooing the customers to get that delight, right? So previously at the beginning, we discussed if we all have the same skills, what is that cutting edge that we have, or what is that additional one thing that I have, right? So things like this. Now, this the thought towards customer centricity with a focus on innovation would definitely matter. So what is that I can bring to the table of the organization from this innovative aspect, the critical thinking, right? That's very important. So if you can marry those skills that you have with the industry that you are passionate about, I think you are in the right track. You're on the right track, right? So consulting is a big time good thing that someone can explore, but really demanding, and corporates as usual, good opportunities there, much more than what we used to see a few years ago or decades ago. So definitely, the situation may be little on the lower side, but definitely it is expected to improve. I can answer any of those in the Q&A if anybody has any questions on that, right? So I am cognizant of time, so we are at 12:09 p.m. We'll keep moving with few more decks, and then we'll open it for any Q&A. Can you please move on to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Okay, so now after this, so this is one of the things, group discussion, and we all know, and would have already done some of this as well. And the questions that we frequently get is, what are the objectives of the group discussion? And definitely, being part of your curriculum, and even before you get into the curriculum, you would have already had this group discussion, right? So now the objective is no different when you get onto group discussion, right? So obviously, how many ever opportunities that we have. So definitely industry wants best of the best, and definitely we can be best of the best with all the skill enhancement. But now the point is, there are certain filtrations that needs to be applied, and that is not the only purpose. The purpose is to see what are the skills that an individual has, be it interpersonal skills, be it communication, be it leadership. All this will be tested. Assessed rather than tested. So now the other part is also very important. Previously we were talking about keeping ourselves updated of the subject, the current affairs, and here lies the connect between your subject knowledge and the knowledge that you have about current affairs towards the group discussion. So one is you have that strength of knowledge, and then you have the skills of the communication, the soft skills, the personality, and the leadership, and then you are able to present yourself in a very positive manner in the group discussion, right? I understand for a few of us it might be little challenging moments. That's absolutely fine. I think none of us learned everything and anything on day one. We can still remember the day when we tried pedaling our bicycle, or the challenge that we had on our day one of our job, or what have you, right? So I think this is what will give us an impetus to progress further. So group discussion is such opportunity wherein definitely we can prove our capabilities and abilities. Now, if you ask me what is the best way to get familiar with this group discussion is, this is like, we cannot look at the book and learn swimming, right? Practice, and as I said, even the 1/5 of the required hour, 2000 hour. Okay, so I don't mean to say you spend that for that, but I think with a focused effort, like any other thing. And when I say focused effort, now that we are in a virtual environment, and we definitely don't have to spend time for commute as an example, which means there is a time savings. Like this, can you carve out some time and invest those times in a virtual group discussion, form a group amongst yourself, take a topic, and not any controversial, because controversial anybody can talk, but which are productive topics which make sense to you, which you strongly think of, and can you all discuss, debate, deliberate on that? And probably two of you can be, just viewing how the proceedings are going, note the feedback, and then share it with the team. Simple thing, right? So now here feedback is very important, and quite often I am also a Toastmaster, and I am sure many of you are already part of the Toastmasters fraternity. If not, please explore Toastmasters fraternity as soon as possible. It's going to be I can assure you, it's going to be a life-changing journey. So in Toastmasters, the strong thing that we rely upon is feedback. So we call it as feedback is the breakfast of champions. Now, it is very important whether it is group discussion or whether it is any other part, and specifically in the group discussion, asking for the feedback, noting it down, and very importantly, working on those feedback, right, is very, very important. And that is how we grow, right? So simple exercise, definitely when you have a lot of net practice, and that is how stalwarts are able to perform on the stage, on the screen, right? Because they have a net practice, right? So same thing holds good. The more practice that you have for group discussion, the more robust your approach would be, the more confident, and there lies before anything the confidence that you can exude. It's quite visible. And remember, not overconfidence, right? So this can be an approach to group discussion, and again, you can just watch numerous videos on the YouTube on how group discussion can be approached. But definitely have this thought in mind. Definitely it will help. When you see that, you can definitely put in your thoughts, right? Now let's move on to the next slide. Yep. So here we go. So interview, and I don't have to tell you the purpose of the interview now, because you all would have already faced interview in many organizations or mock interviews probably in your curriculum. Now, there is a fundamental shift in the purpose of the interview. There is a fundamental shift in the purpose of the interview and the way the interview is conducted, both. Now, purpose of the interview, when I talk about it, I was talking to one of my ex-colleagues. He is one of the the top persons in World Bank Chennai, and he had gotten one reference. This was one of my ex-colleague, and he was checking with me that technically that person is okay. What should I do? And I wanted to provide him with inputs. I did not want to comment anything, you take him or not take him, because in a professional sphere, that is not the right approach, I thought. But I gave him certain inputs and talked about how he approaches the work. What is his attitude about the work, right? Now, in the interview, while the focus is on the knowledge, right? Definitely the knowledge has been tested. There are many tests. If you take, for example, communication, Versant online test is really, really good. There are many online platforms wherein definitely they can, skills also can be tested to some extent, right? But the more focus is on the higher part of the skills, the more focus is on the higher part of the skills, as well as attitude. Because quite often the saying now is definitely along with the knowledge, we also need to hire for the attitude, right? So when I say attitude, it's not just the right attitude or the wrong attitude, because we all know fundamentally how to carry the right attitude. But more importantly, given the complexity in the business environment and the fast changing environment, carrying a positive attitude and can-do attitude and the group mentality of being part of the team, all those things would matter. Now, the interview panel, they generally what happens is the interview panel will also have accreditation, which means they will undergo training on how to conduct the interview. It is not just that the interviewer is a subject matter expert, the person would be able to interview anybody, because of the sheer reason that all of us need a training. And more so the other aspect, the softest aspect of those things are checked, and how to, and when I am doing an interview, I am also a representative of the brand of the company, right? So see, it is always, not like an employer, market or the employee market. It's always, the journey together and win-win, right? organizations also require a good talent, which means both of the prospective employee and the employer have an equal stake. It is not that just that I am eager to join the job, not the thing, right? Company wants the right talent, a right person at the right time, right? So now the task before the interview panel is this. So if I were in the interview panel, I think even before I get started, I would just have a small talk, as in, is everything okay? What time did the candidate reach? Does he need some water or something? If everything is okay, then we will start the conversation. I wouldn't call it as an interview. And when it goes to the higher level, it is more informal, this interview process. But at the beginner level, right? So then starts the interview process, and telling something about yourself, the favorite question. And what I have seen is few people speak quite fast because they want to finish certain things in certain minutes, make sure that they don't forget anything. In this entire scheme of thing, what happens is it appears that a robot is speaking. That shouldn't happen. Take a pause in between. I think it's very good to read the body language of the. You don't need a specific or a specialized skill for that, right? If you can just take a look at the panel and whether whatever you are stating is making sense to them, that makes it much more impactful, rather than in a hurry to finish. I do understand some of the first interviews we'll have that in mind. We'll all get through that in the experience, with the experience. But the most important is take pauses, and this is where the listening part of the communication that I mentioned before comes handy, and also giving pauses in between. Talking not very slowly, but with a controlled speed is very, very important, right? If you want to adjust. See, yesterday I was talking to one of our clients from Germany, right? So typically, what happens is people from Europe tend to speak in a little slow pace. I have to be cognizant when I'm talking to the client that I need to speak in a slow pace. I can't be speaking at a very fast language. That defeats the purpose. So same thing coming back to the interview panel as well. So now, what do you want to tell about yourself? That's up to you, but you will need to keep really crisp and quick. You want to tell about family, and personally, if someone is talking about family, I really feel proud that even before an individual is talking about him or her, is talking about the family. What that tells me is the values and the culture, and in an organization is set up, if the person is expected to work in a team environment for sure for tomorrow, that gives me a bit of indication, not a conclusion, that yeah, so person already is looking around and thinking about the people around him or her, and not just about him. It is my thought, it might differ. Okay, but definitely I think it's good to spend few seconds with whatever, wherever we are, without the support of our parents and the family, we are nowhere. It's very important, right? So now on a side note, organizations give more flexibility to people with family to manage family. Now coming back to, so the next is the technical interview questions would definitely start. And say, for example, if there are 10 questions, I don't expect anyone to be adept or skilled or expert in all the 10 out of 10. If that is the case, wonderful, nothing like it, right? But that is one of the decisive factors. But say, for example, if somebody is 78 out of 10, that's absolutely fine. We are not expected to know each and everything. And but how does the person convey not knowing the answer for the other 2 or 3 questions? Let me repeat. How does the other person convey not knowing the answer to the other 2 or 3 questions? I think that creates a difference. So I have seen people when being asked if not sure about the answer, and we little bit hesitate to say no. But please learn to say no in a right manner. It's very important. Now, if I don't know something, definitely I can say, I think I will need to update myself on that, but surely I will make an effort. Rather than saying, I read it sometime, I read it somewhere, but it does not ring a bell. That is not something advisable. That talks more of what is being said, right? So that's, very important. But, be strong in the fundamentals, as I said, And more importantly, the panel might also ask very, very simple questions just to test how the approach of the candidate to answer to the simplest question, not probably really to test your the technical strength, but the hiring for the attitude purpose. Okay, so and when being given an opportunity to ask question, please do ask questions about how can the career path be, and so on and so forth. And when somebody asks what do you know about our company, the last thing that I would do is going to the website and checking how many employees the company has gotten, in which are the countries that are present, even though that is a good information. But I think more than that, if you are talking about a company, right, if you have what is that you have seen about the company, right, what have you heard about it? Because probably you like that company, and there are many things that through the reports, or you get to hear the accomplishments or whatever. I think talk about it, and in a way, if possible, how that aligns with what you want to accomplish in a career. So for example, if you are an innovative person and the company that you are looking for is innovative, right, that is where you will try to connect both and make a case as to why the employer should hire you, rather than just talking about the company, right? So that's very important. Stay cool, stay calm. That's the only thing, right? So take pauses, stay cool, stay calm, and it will be more of conversational style, and maybe a bit of stress with a purpose can be done, which means there will be a lot of follow-up questions. There is one question, right? Then why, how, when, like this, the questions will come. Answer confidently. I know that might be a little controlled stress test that will be done, right? Suppose, on the other hand, if you think you are not able to get through at least half of the question, say 5 out of 5, that's absolutely fine. You just need to go back to your drawing board and check and get the feedback. It's very important, right? You can ask the panel, and if the panel is not open, I think you can ask people around you on the feedback. And please work on the feedback. That is the only important thing, right? So now let's move on to the next thing. Next slide, please. So right in the beginning, I mentioned this is going to be a very critical thing. And my favorite quote, I keep telling this in all the sessions that I interact with. So the illiterates of 21st century are not the people who cannot read and write. The illiterates of 21st century are the people who cannot learn, unlearn, relearn. So three important things. One is learning. And the next thing is unlearning whatever has become obsolete, whatever does not work anymore, right? So there is a book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Please pick up and read it, right? So that is unlearn. Next is relearn. Now, I think if you see in environment, Professor Venkatesha sir spoke about environment, right? Very good. And there is something called ESG. I would want you to explore what this ESG stands for. In a corporate world, this is the much talked about in the West now: environmental, social, and governance. These are the governance aspects. Now, if you see how the environment or the things in the environment are able to sustain for thousands of years, crores of years, right? Through that metamorphosis it has undergone, through the change it has undergone, right? So in a way, I think the learning is there, regardless of whether it is a living being or not, right? The trees, once in a year or twice in a year, completely takes a new form, right? So similarly, you can just observe, that's an analogy to learning. Now, why is this very important? And if I look at how I started my career, the expectation at that time was do the income tax returns. You have to study the tax law, and there is a tax return preparation software, and then you prepare the income tax return. So that was the ask then. But now, if you see, we are at a juncture wherein we are talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on and so forth. And I think the next few years is going to be that techno-managerial, which is already quite frequently sought after. Also techno-technical, in the sense you have your core technical knowledge as well as you can also use technology to supplement your impact and effectiveness. I can give an example. Now, in many places, bots are already deployed, and the fastest way of doing the repetitive tasks, right? So that has been already the robotics has taken care. Now, because of that, what we are doing is we are exploring some of the trainings like Alteryx, Power BI, UiPath, and Azure. And if you ask me, did I study during my college or did I do that a year ago? Not really. But now currently I am enrolled because I envision, and initially right at the beginning we discussed the skills for future. The skills for future is very important, not only for the skills for the present. These are the skills for future. A strong approach to technology, and definitely don't ever think it might not be your cup of tea. It can be with a passion, and there is no way we can get away from it. All these tools, the technology is going to help us, and it is only going to make our lives better. That's the only thing. So learning on technology and any skill for that matter. You take example of any practicing chartered accountants or CPAs or what have you, engineers, practicing engineers, consulting engineers. Throughout their career, they will need to upgrade themselves through learning, right? So that is why they have CPE and continuous learning, and that is what differentiate between a job and a career. You don't end up doing the same thing over a period of time. It's going to quite frequently change. Now, the other important piece to it is how do you find the resource, right? So if your objective or aim is to improve your communication and leadership skills, I already mentioned about it. Toastmasters, and then you can explore many other things. So similarly, technology related, there is an Alteryx free license for a month, and in a month you can definitely learn a lot of things within Alteryx. Try it out, right? And if you are passionate about share market, most probably you would have heard about SharePro. It's an app, okay, with a nominal fee. Everything is real except the actual money. You can actually trade as you do it in the stock market. And I'm not advising you to extensively involve in the trading, but if there is something that you want to explore, if you are passionate about the markets, the share markets, and the advanced equity tools, vehicles, definitely you can. I'm just putting the idea out there. You can do that dummy trading and get that real experience, right? So the point is, it's very important we find the right resource, and probably you may not be able to find it from one person. This is where the networking comes into picture. Why do you want to start from the scratch when somebody has already invented, discovered, and rather than taking advantage of it with a collaboration with others, why do you want to start from the scratch? And let me tell you, people will help us when we are ready to listen, and when we are also mutually help benefit others. That's the part, right? So please keep learning. And this is one of the things, again, let me repeat it, the initial scenario that I mentioned, that people are laid off of the corporations or what have you. To a great extent, I tend to believe that the learning has stopped, and that is where people get stalled. Now, coding for that example, right? If you take 20 years ago, coding was the most sought after skill. If you look at national education policy, for the grade 6th graders, they are introducing coding, right? So can you imagine of any drastic change than this, right? So that is how the fast paced of the things are moving along, right? So let's move on to the next slide, please. I know we are at 12:31. I know we started around 10 to 12 minutes late, but still, if you all are okay, I'm okay to extend by another 5-10 minutes. I will definitely not barge into your lunch, right? Okay, so here is the question. So I've been talking. I will give you 10 seconds to think about it. If you want to use the chat box, that's fine, or think over. In the meanwhile, this is just a break for me to gulp water.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but I hope this is to remind you that Q&As are coming.
Excellent. So we are in the last but one slide, sir.
Okay, sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you for a reminder. Appreciate that. I am in a full screen.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Appreciate you taking time out. Okay, so very quick thing. Please go to the next slide. This is the most precious resource, I think, and I will also give you a very quick context. Next slide, please. Yep. So as we all know, time is a precious resource. And recently I met one of the wonderful persons. Okay, so his name is Dr. Mahantesh. He lost eyesight at the early age of 4 or 5, but he had a strong vision. So now he has built an Indian blind cricket team who have won many cups across the globe. Now, why did I bring him in this context is when we talk about time. So one thing when I met him last time, he said, people are quite busy, but busy people always have time. So quite, great thought that was on my mind. Busy people always have time because they know where to invest time, where to cut down time, how to effectively use the time. Now, the point is, nobody is as rich as to get back the time that is lost, right? And when we talk about return on investment, right, in on our finance courses, we talk about return on investment. And I did attend one more trainer session. This trainer is an ex-Microsoft executive from Singapore. I would not disclose his name. He gave me one new, word, kind of new term, which is called ROTI, which means return on time invested. It is not always return on investment. It is a return on time invested. So please be aware, be cognizant, be mindful of where do we invest our time. That's very important. Yeah. So next, we can do a lot more things than what we think if we effectively manage our time. And this is one of the critical things in the soft skills. Next slide, please. I think we are at the last slide, and then probably we'll take questions. Yeah, can we please move to the next slide? Yeah. So, okay. So we started with some challenging note, but as I said, on the other end of the newspaper, you always see good news. So my point is, don't get overwhelmed, don't get perturbed by how the future is going to be, how the things are going to be. If that was the case, I think the share market would not have been there. That volatile journey is what makes it. And I think similar analogy with all of us. The most important thing is not getting stuck with the juncture and trying out the ways and means to sail through successfully. I think that's very important. So definitely you will get to see more opportunities in the near future. The things are getting better. Next slide, please. Yep. Okay, so this is my last slide. Appreciate all your time, and Barack Obama, I like him, a very great orator, down to earth person, and rags to riches story. Thank you. And let me pause here and open for any questions. I know in the chat box there are a lot of questions, and if I would really appreciate if someone could please help with picking few questions which can be representative of the other questions. I know it's a little challenging, but I'm happy to answer as many questions as possible. Yep, we can get started. Yeah, so it's 12:35. I'm okay. Another 10 minutes or what have you. If someone can please read the question for me, I would really appreciate that.
Okay, sir. Okay. So the first question was, what are the skill set required for MBA to get during the pandemic situation?
Okay, thank you for asking that question. And since this is the first question, I really appreciate you, honoring the first question. I think it is always like that. Whoever takes the first stab at it or first chance. See, there is no skill as such which is specific to pandemic situation. If I have to get into that granularity, probably how to attend an interview over a video conference or online, I would say that is a skill, right? See, when we talk about skill, some of the things, we will not have an option. We'll definitely learn through it. Okay. So now the other aspect of it, I would say, is now we will have more time at our disposal. See how you can, enhance the skills that we discussed about, few of it. And I will not claim that whatever I have discussed is not in all, right? based on those lines, explore the skills, right? So, and then, as I said, spend some time, invest on some time. I wouldn't think there is any specific skill for the pandemic. If we were to look at it in that way, I don't think it is a MBA specific skill. For example, resilience, right? Getting through the tough times. This is all generic leadership skills, right? So I would urge you to better utilize the time, available time towards the skills that we discussed.
Next question, sir.
Please.
I'm currently doing BE, thinking of doing MBA. What
Yep.
are the things I need to work on while covering basics?
Excellent, excellent. So it's good blend. Again, people have different views between BE and MBA and why would they do. And some people say that you do a BE and work for some years and get experience and then move on to MBA in a tier 2 or tier 1 colleges, right? So now, see, one thing that I have seen out of I would not generalize it, but still, I think having studied BE, you already have a tendency towards checking a cause and effect relationship, which means fundamental knowledge will be strong. I think given that, I think the same thing, accounting and finance concepts or marketing concepts have to be strong. And the best part is, I'm not sure whether the answer seeker or the person who has asked the question has an industry experience. If possible, try to blend it with the experience that you may have. If you don't have experience, try to consult others and work with the people. And I would strongly encourage you to have a mentor in this regard. Somebody who have already done that journey, have been there, done that, successful. That's very important. But I would say it's a very good blend. But as I said, we'll need to, if there are a lot of people doing that, what is your unique selling point? That is something that you will need to explore.
How we develop our skills in teaching profession?
Excellent. So if somebody wants to explore teaching, so definitely I think all the people in the academic fraternity would agree that, and even at home I have teachers and I can definitely see it is like the effort is like a mountain. You only see 20% visible, the other 80% or whatever is underneath. That's the effort. And the only thing is, I think a lot of groundwork. That is one thing. Now, when I talk about teaching, teaching is no more just imparting of the knowledge, right? So to many extent, and this is there in our culture also, right? We were taught in the schools about the attitude, right? So now the more focus is on the skills. And now if you want to become a teacher, how can you be well ahead in terms of whatever is happening in the industry? If that is the expectation from the students, which means you have to be ahead in the flow, not only just go with the flow, you have to be ahead in the flow, right? So that is something I think it is a continuous exploration and a lot of research needs to be done. And then equally, I think we all know the student fraternity is now, the pace at which they think, they work, they act is enormous. So how do you develop your leadership skills? And gone are the days when people would just listen to us out of the fear. I think that is not even in our sphere, right? How can you influence, be it students or whatever, towards the right thinking approach? So I think it's a bouquet of skills that would need. I wouldn't put it in any different than any other job requirement, plus the core subject knowledge, whatever you are passionate about.
Sir, what are the skill set required for MBA to get job in this pandemic?
Yeah, so I think this question is similar to what we discussed, before. See, when we talk about skills, again, right? How flexible are you? So now one thing that let me tell you, I will give you one example. Now we are not able to do the training, right? We used to do the trainings in a classroom when a fresher comes to the corporate environment. Now that is no more the case. No, what that means is we are still doing the training on an online mode, right? Wherein you don't have a person next to you who can come by and answer the question that you may have. Now the challenge is in a virtual environment with the person that you have never met personally, being able to build that connect and being able to speak up probably if you're sitting at home, nobody would come and ask. While there will be a check-ins, you need to speak up that what is the challenge that you are facing. You need to be upfront in a right manner. I wouldn't say in a incorrect manner, but speak up and ask for help. That's more important. And all this requires a communication, good communication, right? So that's the thing. And working in the flexible hours and meeting the client needs and all those things would remain intact.
When according to your opinion, would the 66 ratio be coming down, keeping the current situation in mind?
Okay, so see, now the businesses are finding out the way out to do a business. The entire business model is getting different. The corporations have realized they cannot keep doing the same thing. For example, we deal with the most confidential data and never thought that we would work from home for that long. But now we are left with no option. The business is running as usual since a year and a half. Now, so the other piece of it, see, the economy has to improve, and definitely that will. And now, one of the areas that I work is global mobility, right? When people move from one country to the other country. Now the borders are slowly opening, the businesses are picking up, and the situations are getting better. One of my friends is in a top management position in one of the famous automotive conglomerates with 9 or 10 brands. Okay, what he said is, as soon as the lockdown opens, the demand for automotive vehicles, cars, will increase. When everybody was given to the thought that people would be little thinking to whether to expense on a capital expenditure, the thought is people are more worried about safety rather than using a public transport. Now, the context and the situation may not be always as adverse as we think, right? So now, how do I adapt myself to this situation, be it working from home, or being handling the things alone, or learning new skills? With that, I would say that while the dip might not immediately increase, definitely it is set to increase.
Okay,
But
sir.
I would not say any time it would go to 100%, right? So it's upon us. How do we enhance our skills?
Okay, sir. Rest of the questions we will send to the speaker. So later solutions are sent to the audience in WhatsApp groups.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking session. I hope this made a huge impact on our listeners. We have posted the link for the feedback form in the chat box. So kindly fill that to get the e-certificates.
And I would request everyone to spend few minutes to please provide your candid feedback. I really look forward for the feedback, and this is the only way for me to improve session after session. And I assure you that the feedbacks that have been provided to the best possible extent, I wouldn't just for the sake of saying 100%, I would say to the best possible extent, I would assure you that I would implement those feedbacks in my next sessions.
Okay, thank you, sir, and our audience for this enlightening discussions. Before we proceed further, RNSIT-MBA Department invites you all for the Knowledge Exchange webinar on Success Mantras for Corporate Freshers, which is happening on 8th June, Tuesday between 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Kindly register for the same, and e-certificates will also be provided. I kindly request Mr. Rakesh Nagraj to deliver the Thanksgiving note.
Okay, so are we good to conclude the session?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bear for a few minutes due to technical issues. Sir will connect soon.
Sure. So thank you everyone, and appreciate all the support by RNSIT, and special thanks to Bojana sir for this wonderful opportunity, and Rakesh Nagraj for effectively managing this in spite of we being able to connect only online. And I really look forward to connect with everyone sometime offline. Thank you, and wish you a great success, and have a good rest of the weekend. Take care. Bye.